Hi, my name is Kellie Eastwood, and I'm going to be refuting the proposition providing amnesty for illegal immigrants will not only benefit the United States, but not doing so would be devastating to America's economy. Now, this already started off with two parts, so that kind of made the whole thing a bit confusing and brought everything kind of off topic. The first claim that was made, actually all the claims, all the supporting claims were illegal aliens provide a workforce that is needed. Past experience shows that expelling aliens harms business. High wages force American companies away, and if illegal immigrants were given legal status, the United States would make a lot in taxes. Now, the first claim is basically saying that people that are born in the United States aren't willing to do the hard labor, low-wage jobs that immigrants are willing to do, such as collecting trash or picking up stuff in a hotel room or gardening. But according to the 2009 Bureau of Labor Statistics, 77.7% of workers in food preparation and serving jobs are native-born American workers. 65.8% in cleaning and maintenance jobs are native-born workers. 74.5% in construction and extraction jobs, and 75.9% in production jobs. So this makes it clear then that Americans are actually willing to do those jobs. The second claim that was made was that past experience shows that expelling aliens harms business. Now, in order to prove this, he used the HB 43 law that was passed in Alabama that basically says that officers are required to demand immigration papers from everyone that they stop. But this didn't exactly help his argument because it kind of went completely off topic of the proposition, which was that it's going to benefit the economy, so I'm not really sure how this had anything to do with it. It kind of just talked about how it's unfair to immigrants, but that didn't, He kind of started to connect back a little bit when he was providing examples. He talked about the German Mercedes executive and the Japanese Honda worker and how their arrests stopped them from scouting for new factory plant locations. But the only problem with this was that these were very generalized, and it's hard to basically compare two people to every immigrant. And also, with the German Mercedes executive, on the exact same article, I found that his arrest that was worth mentioning, really, he actually got released right away because an associate found his paperwork, his passport, his visa, his German driver's license in his hotel room, and he was released right away. So I don't really think that was a very strong example to use. In the third argument, he says that high wages force American companies away, but sources weren't even used at all. He mentions Ford and how they're moving their small car production to Mexico, and upon finally finding this source, I realized that although this is true, the alternative, I'm guessing, would be providing cheap labor to immigrants in the U.S., which would be doing the exact same thing and still taking away jobs from American citizens. So I'm not really sure how that really relates back and really benefits the economy. Plus, according to Pew Researchers' article on 5 facts about illegal immigration, illegal immigrants often work to support a family back home for whom the U.S. dollar goes a lot further than it does here. And if they're willing to work for less than minimum wage, they're going to be the ones to get the job. And the money also doesn't go back into the U.S. economy because they're taking the money back to their country to support their family. In the fourth argument, that illegal immigrants were if given legal status in the United States, the U.S. would make a lot in taxes. This is probably the most relevant to the proposition, but all of the statistics stated were not, I couldn't find the sources anywhere. But what I did find was that even though immigrant taxes would undoubtedly add money to the U.S., the immigrants' use of social programs such as schools and hospitals cost taxpayers more and add to our national debt. So is their tax paying really actually benefiting our economy when in the long run they're causing our national debt? So all in all, although I personally agree with the proposition that providing amnesty for illegal immigrants will not only benefit the United States, but not doing so would be devastating to the American economy, the lack of substantial evidence and sources and the failure to remain on topic the entire time made the argument pretty much just lack strength overall. Thank you.
Ouch. Okay.
I just kind of started ranting.
I'm solid.
It doesn't look like I'm really reading anything, but I'm really, it just doesn't make sense.
All right, well, sometimes you're making a critique and sometimes you're making a refutation argument. The critique is when you're evaluating the issues that, oh, he's got multiple claims, or he's off tangent on something, that sort of thing, and I don't think he did a very good job of presenting those arguments, which is neither here nor there. That's not of critical importance to what we're looking at. We're looking at what are the answers to the arguments that are being presented. And I did think that you had some good answers on a couple of those points, especially on the first point, where you have very good evidence that suggests that people would in fact take these jobs, and you list a whole bunch of examples of categories of jobs where the vast majority of people who have those jobs are native-born Americans. And so that seems to address that issue pretty effectively. I thought that was a good counterclaim on that point, and suggests that there is a value to taking some action on this particular point. The past experience argument, I think you emphasize that he's talking about this one particular law in Alabama, and you're suggesting that this is really kind of a unique situation to be judging from. And that's a good challenge to make. I do like the idea that you suggest that the two cases of the Mercedes and the Japanese businessmen could not really be much to generalize from. That's a reasonable press on that also. And then you kind of try and say, and the Mercedes guy, he ended up being released anyway because they had the information. So here's the question I think that might be effective to ask at the end. So, did he leave because he thought, the rules are so bad here that we could never work? Or did he leave because he was pissed off that he had violated the rules and got in trouble for it, and just says, well, I'm not going to do business here? That sort of thing. And, the question then becomes, do we think that the world is full of business people who would react in such a way? And your argument would be, I doubt that. It seems unlikely. And so that's a good challenge, and it's a reasonable press there. You argue that he's got a weak example to support his particular position. I think you had an interesting point on the third point, which in essence says, look, if they're moving the jobs to Mexico and they're paying them less there, well, what's the difference then if they're paying them, here? If they're, that particular situation, that seems like a little bit of an inconsistency. And the argument that says, well, they might, that Ford would make this decision regardless of what the position would be, because they can pay lower wages in Mexico. They have to pay the same wages here. That it's like all that money gets sent back, and I thought that was a good argument there. You also make an argument that suggests on the fourth point that there would be, we'd spend more on resources than we'd get back in taxes. That's an assertion on your part. You don't have any evidence on that particular point, so I think you're pressing it a little bit there. Just in terms of general demeanor, I think you do a good job speaking to the audience, and you're pretty effective. I would leave out the part at the end where you say, well, I agree, as I've used the example several times in class before. If you were the defense attorney and you said, I think my client's guilty as hell, but the prosecutor didn't really prove that he's guilty, so you shouldn't really convict him. That doesn't work very well, and the truth is that I gotta be honest with you, I don't care what anybody's opinion is on any of these subjects. It's not relevant. The question is, did you find the issues on the side that you were arguing? So that's the thing that you want to look for. So probably best not to do that because it undermines your credibility and it's not relevant to the issue that we're talking
I felt like
about
I was
here.
being really harsh, and so I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I understand. Look, people, whenever you have topics like this, people are a little politically sensitive, and you don't want to come off and say, "Well, I hate all the illegal immigrants" or something like that. I know that you don't want to do that,
Yeah.
but I got to be honest with you. That's not really what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
You know.
No.
I appreciate it.